All right, moving on to the next segment of today's show. I wanted to talk about the San Francisco 49ers. And if you saw in week 2, the San Francisco 49ers actually got the W over the New York Jets as they won the game by a final score of 31-13 to earn their first win of the season and to get to 1-1. But the main takeaway from this game for basically everyone is that even though the San Francisco 49ers were able to win, at what cost was it? Because they just lost so many players on their team to injury. And right now, when you look at the current shape of the San Francisco 49ers, they are really banged up. Before today's game even started, they weren't playing with their star tight end, George Kittle, who was banged up last week. And it didn't really help on Sunday because they had even more guys go down, with Nick Bosa tearing his ACL, with Solomon Thomas tearing his ACL, Jimmy Garoppolo getting hurt, Raheem Mostert getting hurt, and right now the San Francisco 49ers are very banged up. Now, I'll start off by saying this. Going into the season, I thought the San Francisco 49ers were going to come in second place in the NFC West. I had them as a wild card team, and the main reason for that was, even though I loved the way their team was built, I just thought when you look at Seattle and Russell Wilson at quarterback, they had the advantage there. And I just thought San Francisco won the division last year. Seattle is going to be out for revenge. I thought Seattle was going to win it this year. I also had the Arizona Cardinals making the playoffs as a wild card team, but I did predict San Francisco to finish with about a game better record than them. And right now, that prediction doesn't look too good because Arizona looks like one of the 5 best teams in football right now. I don't know if that's a huge overreaction or not. I'm just going by what my own eyes tell me, and what my eyes tell me is that Arizona is one of the better teams in football. So when you combine those two things, that the 49ers are super banged up with so many injuries all across their team, when you look at Seattle and the way they've looked so far this season, when you look at Arizona and the way they've looked so far this season, and not to mention the LA Rams, who have 2 wins over 2 consecutive NFC East opponents, Dallas and Philadelphia, and the way Jared Goff has looked, the Rams fans should be feeling pretty positive. So we knew this NFC West was going to be very good, but I don't even know if anyone expected it to be this good. And the first thing I'll say is this. I think the 49ers could be in a little bit of trouble, but at the same time, I don't want to say their season is over, I don't want to say that their season is over when you look at their sideline. Kyle Shanahan is still their coach. They still have some pieces, and hopefully Jimmy Garoppolo he's only going to miss a week at most, maybe 2. And it's hard to see a future where the 49ers are contenders. I get it, especially for a Super Bowl. But even though the team is down 4 of their 5 best players and their quarterback is sidelined for, once again, who knows how long, I don't think the 49ers are done yet. I prefer not to write anyone off in the NFL until October, especially when it's a contender and a team that made the Super Bowl like San Francisco did last year. And I won't lie, some things don't look good for this 49er team at all. But you guys know how the NFL season works. It's a war of attrition. And even though this week, the San Francisco 49ers and so many players on their team went down with injuries, that might as well happen to many other teams from now until the end of the season. And the 49ers, they had some bad luck through the first 2 weeks, no doubt about it, but maybe that will happen to another team. I think the league is so far too volatile to treat every game like a permanent referendum. San Francisco is going to need to keep its head above water for the next few games, no matter who their quarterback is, and then I think we could, truly assess where exactly we have the San Francisco 49er team going from here. Moving on to what exactly they will look like at quarterback. So Nick Mullins is their backup. He played in relief of Jimmy Garoppolo in this game. And there are some who have suggested both in the past and in the present that even Nick Mullins could be a better quarterback option than Jimmy Garoppolo. And I don't think those people really looked too good on Sunday. And I think the Niners are going to be able to manage things with Nick Mullins next week against the New York Giants, assuming the turf is okay. But if Jimmy Garoppolo misses more time than that, I think things may be getting pretty ugly fast, especially if somehow, some way, the San Francisco 49ers don't win on Sunday. I've always said this about a backup quarterback. your team has a good backup quarterback when your starter gets hurt for a month, so 4 weeks, and your backup is able to go 2-2 in that span. I think that's exactly what Nick Mullins needs to do if he plays more than a game or two for the 49ers within the next couple weeks. I think that's exactly how you grade how good your backup quarterback is. And I think Nick Mullen is a perfect backup quarterback. He provides, knowledge of the playbook. And the problem is, even though he provides you with that good knowledge, I just don't see him having any upside at all. He simply just doesn't have the arm to punish defenses on his own. And he threw multiple just ugly balls on Sunday against the Jets. And while the interception that he threw wasn't entirely his fault, it was one that I feel like the Giants coaches, when they game plan for San Francisco next year, are really gonna, look to and, really promote to their team. This guy could turn the ball over. This guy throws, balls in the air for a while. Maybe we could get some damage on it. And it should be noted that when you look at the 49ers next week, they are a 4-point favorite with Nick Mullins as their quarterback, but I don't know. If Jimmy Garoppolo was their starting quarterback, I could definitely see that number being at like 7. And when you look at San Francisco's next two opponents after the Giants, they will have the Eagles and they will have the Dolphins. And I think actually both of those teams could provide the 49ers with some real challenges in the weeks to come. Challenges where the 49ers would probably need Jimmy Garoppolo to get the job done. And those are the next 3 games for San Francisco. Once again, the Giants on the road, the Eagles, and then the Dolphins at home. And then after that, they have a big October 18th game against the Rams. We'll see where exactly both teams stand in the standings after that game. The other thing I wanted to talk about with San Francisco is the turf and at MetLife Stadium, and the fact that so many San Francisco 49ers were injured. So obviously, I'm not a turf expert, but I do think it is fair to say that the turf at MetLife Stadium was absolutely a factor why San Francisco and so many of their players got hurt. We know the Steelers and Giants played a game on that field last Monday without really any incident or complaint. I know Zach Banner got hurt, but that kind of just looked like more of a freak injury to me. The Jets had their injuries in week 2, but to my knowledge, they didn't complain about the turf at their home field. And the 49ers, it's the same thing for them. They probably had no problem complaining about the turf when other teams were complaining about the factors of Levi Stadium. Apparently, the turf was deemed too sticky, but it was also too slippery. That's what Jordan Reed said. With everyone covering the team so far away, there's no choice but to follow with the official company line, but I'm kind of skeptical. I don't know what exactly the deal with the turf is here. The NFL is going to investigate MetLife Stadium the next couple of days, and when you look at it, and when you look at everything that went down for the San Francisco 49ers in this game, I think the main takeaway is San Francisco lost their first game, and it's good for them to get in the win column, even if it does come with all of these injuries. And I feel like if you're a San Francisco 49er fan, you kind of just have to take it one game at a time. Does it obviously suck that Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas go down with injuries? Yes, especially when you consider the fact that they're out for the season. But at the same time, I still think San Francisco needs to look at their team like pretty positively. They could say to themselves, all right, Bosa goes down, he's he's probably our top pass rusher, and I get it, but at the same time, we still have one of the best defensive lines in the NFL, and the depth of that defensive line is really going to have to be tested when you look at Arik Armstead and the rookie Javon Kinlaw. Hopefully, Richard Sherman will be back in the secondary as well. We know how big of an impact he provides to the defense of San Francisco. Also, even though Nick Mullins looked a little bit shaky on Sunday, San Francisco still does have some playmakers on their way back. George Kittle should hopefully play in week 3. Brandon Ayuk, the rookie wide receiver from Arizona State, he played in week 2, looked okay. I think he's going to just keep on getting better and better. I like what Kendrick Bourne could do as a wide receiver as well. So I think when you look at San Francisco and the fact that they're scheduled the next 3 weeks, home at the Giants, home Philadelphia, home Miami. If they could go 2-1 in that stretch at the worst, I think they'd be in solid shape going into that game against the Rams. Obviously, 3-0 would be ideal, but when you look at the amount of injuries that this team has, then I don't know what exactly fair expectations are going to be for this San Francisco 49er team. They also decided to bring in Ziggy Ansah from from the free agent market. And I think when you look at it, the San Francisco 49er team, they're going to be really tested over the next couple weeks. I think the interesting thing is this. I trust Kyle Shanahan as a head coach to get the job done. And the thing is, he's had to deal with adversity since he's been the head coach of San Francisco, but not really since he's had them on this big run. And I'll explain to you what exactly I mean. When Kyle Shanahan first got to San Francisco, I don't think he ever really expected his first year or two for his team to have a realistic shot to win. And then all of a sudden, his team makes the big-time trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. The defense just keeps on getting better and better through the draft, and him and John Lynch both deserve a lot of credit for that. And I think in this situation, this is really where the team's depth is going to come into play. Losing Raheem Mostert absolutely is awful, and he's going to be out for a couple weeks. And I think when you look at San Francisco, even though that's obviously a very unfortunate injury, they still have Tevin Coleman. They still have Jerick McKinnon. We already spoke about their pass catchers at wide receiver. The one, part of their team that actually is pretty healthy is their offensive line. And hopefully, when you look at quarterback, do I think the 49ers need Jimmy Garoppolo to win long term? And by long term, I mean, this season, for this season only. And when you look at the future of this season, I think in order for San Francisco to succeed, do they need Jimmy Garoppolo as their quarterback? Absolutely. But at the same time, Nick Mullins is a guy, I think, with this supporting cast around him and the schedule that San Francisco has, I think he's a capable enough quarterback to leading them to 2-2. And once again, when you're a team that's evaluating your backup quarterback, I think that's really one of the only things you could ask. Just say, don't turn the ball over, don't lose us the games, and keep us in the race until Jimmy Garoppolo comes back. Because I think if you're a 49er fan and you look at what this team has been dealing with since all of the injuries have started, since the season has started, you just want to take it one game at a time and stay as healthy and consistent as possible.